Hello, greetings everyone. This is Jed, and for today's video I'll speak a little bit about spirituality, negative energy, and fear and superstition. When people become very passionate or very enthusiastic about a spiritual path or spiritual practices, sometimes they get overly focused on avoiding the negative or protecting themselves from some form of negative energy or evil that they believe or perceive is out there that could affect them. This is sort of a complex, nuanced topic since we live in a reality with all sorts of energies and frequencies, all forms of consciousness surrounding us. If we're just going about our everyday life, we're encountering a variety of people, and those people could have a really wide range of intentions, a wide range of agendas, as well as varying emotional states. So there's different frequencies of energy that people are embodying or radiating in that sense. And we usually don't spend a lot of time and energy focusing on doing things to protect ourselves from all those people that we're interacting with. We're typically more focused just on carrying out our day-to-day responsibilities, pursuing our passions and interests, and so on. However, if you start to focus on thinking about things that could be negative or harmful to you, then you may start to put a lot of energy and attention into doing things that you believe will keep you safe, will keep you protected, will shield you in some way from any impact or effect from what you believe or think is negative. So let's look a little more deeply at this and see the potential pitfalls of becoming overly focused on protecting yourself, in a sense becoming kind of superstitious, feeling that you need to do certain things, certain rituals, or create a certain type of environment to ensure that you're not going to be impacted by negativity. We want to be kind of more focused internally on our own state of being, our own state of consciousness, maintaining our own energy in a strong, coherent, integrated, and uplifted state, rather than focusing really so much on what's external and having to do a bunch of things to avoid harm from the external environment. People have a variety of routines or rituals that they find may be helpful for helping them feel that they're safe, that they're protected, that they're blocking or repelling any harm. And to a certain extent, those are useful, they're beneficial when we're using them to carry or bring ourselves into that state where we are in harmony, where we are feeling confident and empowered, and so on. However, if we become too attached to any particular ritual or external implement, in a sense, then that can become a limitation, and it could ultimately interfere with our own internal locus of control, or our own internal state of consciousness that we're seeking to develop. Let's use for an example someone that wears a particular necklace or amulet that they feel protects them, or a certain bracelet. You'll see a lot of people wear now some of those copper bracelets, and there are people that wear the red string. There are people that use the symbol to protect against the evil eye. So these are all different rituals and customs and routines that people have connected with and feel are helping them be safe protected, and so on. It's important to realize that our own consciousness is really the core of our own protection. So if you believe something is going to be beneficial and strong and empowering for you, then when you use that thing or that practice that you believe in, then in a way it has a beneficial effect for you. However, if you believe that if you don't use that particular thing, then you're in a state of weakness or vulnerability, then it's actually disempowering for you because you're believing something is needed that ultimately isn't needed. So it may give you that sense of protection and well-being when you use it, but if you believe you're dependent on that to have that state of well-being, then it's actually constricting your ability to be strong, to be empowered, to have your energy in the state of harmony that you desire. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, you could say, in that sense, that it's some routine or some tool you found helpful that gets you into the state of being empowered, but your belief that you need it to be in that state is actually in the long term disempowering for you. I hope I've explained that in a clear and adequate way for you to grasp this concept. So there are many different practices, many different routines that people use that in some way are uplifting their energy, but part of that effect is what you could call the placebo effect. Just the fact that you believe in something being beneficial for you, then you're creating that beneficial effect with your belief, with your mind, and it's not necessarily that tool or practice or object you're using that's creating the state or the energy frequency that you're accessing. So there are some things that have in themselves an intrinsic benefit or effect, but there's also some things that actually aren't really intrinsically of much value or use, but just your belief in it gives you some benefit when you use it due to your belief. So with spirituality, this leads to a lot of superstitions where people believe in something, but that thing or practice that they believe in doesn't necessarily in and of itself have the benefit that someone believes it has. This is something for you to explore and consider with any practices or any tools or objects or things you're using in terms of your spirituality, any rituals or routines that you're implementing. Another part of this is the element of fear. So when we're afraid, we might attach to anything that gives us a sense of relief from our fear. So if you're anxious and there's a certain object that gives you a feeling of safety and security, then you're going to have some belief develop that that particular object is giving you a protection. And if that's been helping you kind of detach from your fear, then later on it may be hard for you to feel safe if you don't have that object, that security blanket in a sense, using that metaphor. So it's common for people to have fears and superstitions related to their fears that can sometimes lead to compulsive behaviors. So if you think of someone that is constantly crossing themselves based on their faith, when there's something that they're feeling insecure about or concerned about, if they feel there's danger or a threat, they might continually repeat that ritual, and it could become somewhat intrusive, where they're doing it all the time. They're going through their whole day doing that very often, so it's kind of consuming to them. And this happens when we have a lot of anxiety or a lot of fear. We can become very attached to religions, to rituals, to spiritual practices. They become very much superstitions in many cases, where there isn't really any innate intrinsic benefit to some of the things people are doing. They're just very attached to it because of their belief. Another thing I would like to bring into this discussion is the basic or fundamental concept of energy and whether energy is negative or positive. To some extent, that can be relative or subjective. So if you're around people that you like and resonate with, then to you their energy may feel positive. But those same people might go around someone else who doesn't feel a resonance with them, who doesn't have a similar consciousness or way of being to that other person. They might feel uncomfortable with that same energy. To them, they might even label that as a negative energy because it's not in harmony with their own energy. If we get focused on the idea of energies around us being negative, then that puts us in kind of a polarized relationship with those energies or whomever may be represented by those energies. If we recall a spiritual concept of unity or oneness, that we're all part of ultimately the same creative source, then everything exists as some aspect or expression of that ultimate source. And in that context, nothing is ultimately negative. Everything has some value or purpose to it. There are many different frequencies, many different wavelengths or vibrations emanating from that ultimate source, and some of them might seem very dark or dense to you, and others might seem very elevated or illuminating to you. But that doesn't mean that we're going to reject the existence of the ones that we don't feel a connection with or comfort with. We can just sort of detach from them, let them exist, let them be, and bring our focus more toward energies or frequencies that we find desirable for ourselves. So in that case, you don't have to point to the energies that you don't like or desire as negative. You can just tell yourself those are frequencies that you don't find beneficial or supportive for you and your path, and you're free to kind of ignore them, to detach from them, and go on about your path without having to fight with or struggle with or do anything complex or complicated to shield yourself from what you've seen as undesirable energies. So you might sometimes think of them as negative, but they're just part of creation, part of existence, and it's okay to let them be. It's okay to focus your attention somewhere else so you're not busy going through rituals and routines to be protected from that so-called negative. As long as you're keeping your own energy in a really strong, powerful, elevated state, you could call it a state of joy, a state of love, a state of bliss, a state of harmony, then those other energies out there are not going to bring you down. you're elevated, you're empowered, you're uplifted, and you're maintaining your own state of being. So whatever you might see out there or call in some way negative is not going to really have an impact on you. You don't have to really do anything about it because you're very much centered in your own healthy, harmonious state of being. And the more you're able to do that, to focus on your own state of energy and empowerment, the less you'll feel you need to be concerned with doing anything to protect yourself from what's out there in that external environment. The less coherent and empowered your own energy is, the more you might feel you need protection from something in the external environment, because the more that has the potential to impact and affect you. So it's from that vulnerability that we feel we need to have some form of protection. If you are totally in harmony with and resonance with, in a sense, unified with the infinite divine consciousness, that ultimate power, then nothing in that external realm would disturb you. But because we are in our human experience, where our consciousness and energy are somewhat limited, then we feel that we are vulnerable, that we need to protect ourselves and shield ourselves and keep out the negative, so to speak. So it's kind of a balancing act, finding what we need to maintain our state of energy and well-being based upon where we're at in our own place of being, our own state of consciousness, our spiritual development. I hope that this discussion has given some insight, some ideas, help expanded awareness in some way relevant to these subjects. For those that are interested in spirituality and holistic healing and energy and so on, you're invited to watch some of my other videos on these topics, and you can also learn more about the services I provide and about these holistic health topics on my website, phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. For now, I'd like to wish each of you a wonderful day. Namaste.